Hey everybody, this is Scoots. I make a Sleep With Me podcast, and the stories here at Bedtime Stories from Sleep With Me are stories from our main show, Sleep With Me podcast. I only laugh because it's a lot of words, but if you really enjoy these bedtime stories from Sleep With Me, or if you're new, welcome, enjoy them. I hope you enjoy them. I hope they keep you company in the deep dark night, help you fall asleep. But if you really enjoy these stories, the best ways to help them keep it coming is to try out a subscription on Sleep With Me Plus at sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus, or just let people know about bedtime stories from Sleep With Me. It's new. It's something we've never tested out before. And by sharing it, letting people know about it is a huge way to support it and to let other people know what you like about it. So I really appreciate it. And I'd love to hear from you. If you sign up for Sleep With Me Plus, even for a trial, I'll send you out a video and thanking you, and you can reply right to that video. Or you could always reach me through the contact page on our website. Those messages come straight to me. Thanks so much, and enjoy these bedtime stories from Sleep With Me. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and friends beyond the binary, it's time for the podcast who's here to bring you some bedtime cheer. Whether you're far or near, nothing will be as it appears, and nothing has ever been clear. And of myself, I'll make a rear. All to put you to sleep and to keep you company. And if you're confused, you're in the right place, because it's time for Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. Hey, everybody, this is Scooter. I make a Sleep With Me podcast, and that's where these stories come from, bedtime stories from Sleep With Me. And I hope they help you fall asleep. If you enjoy these, let people know about the show. Just share it when you share stuff. Hey, I really like these bedtime stories from Sleep With Me. Or you could always support the show on Sleep With Me Plus. That's how we're able to do this. You could sign up at sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. You could test out a trial even. But if you value the content we make on Sleep With Me and here at Bedtime Stories from Sleep With Me, it's the most powerful way to make sure they're here and available for you now and in the future. And you can always let me know about it. When you sign up for Sleep With Me Plus, I send you a thank you video. You can reply right to that video. Or you could get me through the contact page on our website, right at sleepwithmepodcast.com. So thank you so much, and good night. All right, everybody, it's Scoots here, and it's been a while since I've done a personal essay-style episode, or one of those, and I try not to, I really try not to force things, but I give you a little background, a little sleepy background here, and see where this goes. Because I guess I've had some confluence of things, and who knows when you're listening to this, but when I'm recording it, it kind of plays into that. And I guess it'd be cool that I'll be editing this and you'll be listening to it in the future, which is another great opportunity to see how these growth opportunities go. So let me see, where are we at? So it's the fall of 2021. I'm laughing because I don't know what year it is, and I know you probably don't either. And then even when I think it is, then I say, probably not, that it can't be. But so to kind of practice more and more self-care and try different things out, I've tried to get back into journaling, or morning pages or evening pages, or inventory, whatever you want to call it. I'm trying to bookend my wind down routine and my wake up routine with some more, just trying to get a little bit more involved in my life. Without, in a way that just gives me some cornerstones and to try out. And also, to be honest, because it's, if you do have kids in your life, it has to say, hey, this is what I'm doing, or we could do it together, side by side, parallel journaling. And we could just keep our private business to our private business, but we could just do it at the same time as part of our wind down routine. Because it's the fall of 2021, the autumn of 2021. I don't think it's an easy time for anybody, but particularly school children. But that doesn't mean, and I know this can be something that I say, oh boy, I'm having strong feelings about this. And I say, yeah, this is an opportunity though, too. And I don't always view things that way, but I do have to say that then I started to realize some strange layers of stuff as I started journaling in a good way. And what I'm thinking we'll talk about, and maybe this will end up being a 2-session show, I don't know, because I don't know where this is, I really don't know where this is going to go, or if I have like 65, 70 minutes of stuff. So I'm trying to think where to start, but I guess where it starts is, with the backstory of where I'm at now and why I'm thinking about this. What it really comes down to is the hills of the East Bay and the South Bay in Northern California. And if you live in like Southern California or Central California, you probably have some of these hills. They may be a little bit different, the grass that is not green can still always be greener, because I do feel like I like the hills and mountains around Los Angeles a little bit better. Just sort of a little bit more wild, but you do have to drive a little bit, past Pasadena or whatever, or out in that direction. I think I can't even remember anymore to get to those kind of hills. But these rolling, undulating hills in California, and they're a bit different because when it's raining in the winter, they turn green, which I guess is counterintuitive for the rest of everywhere else. And even for me, they have this rhythm, and then they turn brown, and they're brown for most of whenever the rain stops, a little bit after that, and through the summer and into the autumn, which is kind of what our summer is here anyway. And then again, the cycle repeats itself in different ways. And it's not something I really know a lot about, other than when you drive east from Oakland or San Francisco, you'll start to see them. And the further east you go until you get to the valley, you'll see more and more of them, unless you go north or real far east into the mountains. These are the hills. I don't know if they're considered mountains. I don't really know. So, what was my point here? I don't know what my point. Do I have a point? These hills, when you live here, they are something that you, or at least I, kind of take for granted. And I've lived in California for a while. But then you see them turn green, you say, "Oh, that's cool," and then they turn brown again, and so the reason they have importance is twofold. Right now, I have fallen deeply in love with these hills again, because of just some changes, but more so the confluence is that this was literally the first thing I saw when I got to California, when I knew I was in California. So I'm trying to think what to explain first. I guess I'll explain the current love first, and then we'll go back, because then it'll be like looking at the onion and then maybe peeling the onion to say, well, there's probably something more here. And I also, well, no, we'll go to the other layers. But so I've fallen in love with these hills. And this is kind of a current personal essay type thing. I prefer the past ones because the boundaries are a little bit different than talking about my current circumstances. But so my current circumstances are that, my routines changed, just like a lot of people changed. They changed going into the 2020, 2019, 2021, and then they changed coming out of them. So it's kind of been like this 3-phase thing. Well, I kind of had my routine, and then I started to try to formulate a routine with my daughter learning from home, and now we're formulating a new routine with my daughter going to school. And she goes to school somewhere where we commute to school, and while she's at school, I work from a co-working space on the days I drive her to school, just because it's a reverse commute situation taking her to school. But if I was to try to go back home and work from home, not only would I have a double commute, but then the commute would be like, it just with traffic, it's just not achievable. And only driving one way. I drive her to school, then I go to the co-working place and I work, and then I go pick her up from school and we go home. But that's kind of also changed around some of the production of the podcast, because I can't record episodes, at least when I'm recording this, at the co-working space, because it's just an office setting and it's not quiet and there's not a podcast studio there. And I don't know if I'd be comfortable, I don't know if that would necessarily work. So we'll see. But things are working fine on the production thing. It's just it changes, right? And I guess it's good it is good for me to talk about this, even though it's outside of my comfort zone, because I see sometimes when I talk about my life in current circumstances, I feel like the boundaries become blurry or impact people in a way because I fall out of line of like how they imagine things or whatever around the podcast. And then sometimes I have to renegotiate those boundaries with certain listeners, or people take exception to it or whatever. So I'm just putting that out there because I say, well, I'm still trying to be vulnerable, not in a way to say, hey, it's okay. If you're having trouble with me talking about this stuff, you could listen to another episode, but more with this world stuff of trying to navigate it. I'm not going to get too deep into the difficulty or whatever, but it's like, okay, I don't always view this stuff or wholly view it as opportunities for growth or exploration. But I also want you to know that some tiny part of me, probably because of the podcast, I made positive interactions with all the listeners and the examples you said, that it's like I've grown a little bit where I say, okay, these changes are good. So that set up one change, right? And we've gotten kind of into a rhythm. And then I said, okay, well, probably after we get back from school, is when I would record some intros, or some pickups, where normally I would record those if I was working from home for a full day during the day. And then when I'm at the co-working space, I haven't gotten a routine down for the week, but where I'm able to focus a lot more on production, writing, and all of the, a lot of the logistical stuff that you just got to sit and focus at a desk anyway to get done for the podcast. So I foresee once I get adjusted to this, one day it being more okay, these are my focus office days, and these are more of my production days. But we'll see. I don't know. We'll see how things, that would be interesting if I fall back into a routine where I'm recording twice a day in 2 separate sessions, but I don't necessarily see that happening yet. Also, a lot of this is about self-care, right? And I've talked about running before. And if you ever want a memoir about running, I know the Oatmeal has a lot of them, but also what I talk about when I talk about running, which I'm probably misquoting, by Murakami, is a great memoir about writing and running. So, okay, I loathe running. I've talked, I guess I didn't think this would be a running podcast about running, but this will go into a whole nother thing of California. So, but running is something, or jogging, you'd say, that since I discovered podcasts before I even started making Sleep With Me, particularly Script Notes and some deep dive theme park podcasts, those got me back into running because I was able to, and I've talked about this, or I talk about it in interviews a lot too, there's something about that very similar, and that probably led to Sleep With Me, that normally if I was running, even if I'm, normally when I'm running, the one thing I don't want to think about is the fact that I'm running, because for me, and I know there's a lot of mindful runners, and mindfulness in running is a thing, and I am paying attention, but I don't want to think, if I start thinking about running and not being mindful of it, then I think I loathe this. How much longer do I have to do this? And I can't really enjoy it because my thoughts are getting in the way, which is my own thing. But because I discovered podcasts, I'm able to, so I'll still have my thinking track going on in my brain unrelated to running. That could be, whatever, my chattering brain. that could be chattering about anything. But then I also have a podcast going. Let's say it is Script Notes or Len Testa on a podcast. And I'm listening to that. I'm able to kind of listen to that. And then maybe my thoughts intrude on the podcast and I pause and I get distracted or I drift away and then I go back to the podcast or I rewind. So what were John and Craig talking about? I better back it up because, but so that enabled me to not think about that third thing, the fact that I'm running and whatever, I'm exerting myself or, just not getting my overthinking brain involved in that process, just distracting enough. And that's worked. I mean, there's been times I've taken breaks from running or, every once in a while, I get a little pull something and I take a break. And, secretly I'm afraid to say this, but I do enjoy running. Even though there's part of me that loathes it, I really do like it. And I like being outside and I like being, not that I'm running, I'm not a fast runner, but like be able to get to a certain distance at a certain pace that's not that fast, but being able to jog for an hour, like enables you to kind of see stuff that walking you wouldn't be able to see or enjoy stuff. So that was a tangent about running, but it's an important tangent because I said to myself, with my daughter saying, I said, okay, I'm trying to balance work and this is a part of my self-care and almost a hobby is running or jogging. And she's going to school east of where we live. So there was one time I was before I had the co-working space, I was working at libraries. And so there was 2 public libraries I had to choose from. So there was one time I drove to one of the public libraries and I drove through the hills that I was talking about. And I saw a couple parks and I realized, wow, there's a lot of trails on these hills. I'd like to start running. And then another day, I think I just got lost. Was I just lost or did I go looking? No, did I go running? Oh, no. So I said to myself, well, why don't you go for your run, and time it so you finish your run at school pickup and you can leave your car at school pickup or, in the parking lot or whatever. And, then it's not necessarily the end of your work day, but you're not distracted by when are you going to run? Let's try that out. So I tested that out weeks ago and I said, well, let me see how far from her school, if I can just run and find one of these random entrances to these hills, a lot of which are run by the East Bay Parks District, which is amazing. And I don't really know the history of it, but if you go to the East Bay of California, like the hills between Oakland and San Leandro and Hayward, and then that's a developed area. And then the next developed area, which would be kind of the 680 corridor, I'd call it. You have San Ramon, Dublin, Pleasanton, Walnut Creek at Concord. The hills between those are mostly parks, which is really like a miracle now. And such a resource and a visionary resource in the sense of not only was it preservation, but it's also offers recreation and it offers value that, nowadays might get lost in the bottom line or might become overvalued instead of saying, wow, this actually serves a value that, probably increases the home values. And, ideally we'll build a lot more housing in California in the areas that are already developed. We don't need to use these hills. And I don't think that'll change. I think they're protected because it's a resource, even if you live in an apartment building, then you can enjoy the hills or whatever. Like me, I don't have a house in the hills where I could just run out. It'd be pretty sweet. But so, let's see, where was I? So everybody gets to enjoy these parks. So I ran one day and I just kept running and I was going down side streets and then I found an entrance to this open space, they called it. And interestingly enough, it had a bike trail or bike and running trail, a horse trail, and then hiking and trail running trails. Now, I was at the end of my run that day, so I just found the entrance and then I ran back to my car. And then since then, I've said, okay, well, I could park at the entrance to that and then run in the hills. And I don't know. I mean, right now it's still something new. So you all know what it's like at the beginning of a relationship when there's unexplored territory. But I am so in love with trail running in these hills, or or hiking, because sometimes it's too steep for me to run or jog even. And I'm just really enjoying it. And it's also like inland, so it's a hotter air, which I love running, like not in humidity, but like I can, dry heat, I actually do enjoy running in. I mean, not extreme dry heat, but 80s, 90s, I don't mind, like, because if there's not a high humidity, I don't know. But I said there's something else here. Like as soon as I hit these hills and I started running or jogging in them, and you're talking about these same things. So very dry right now, dirt, hard packed dirt with brown grass or no, well, a straw colored grass. They'd say brown, but I'd say like a straw colored grass. And there's some trees and stuff, but it's fairly barren. But to me, it is so beautiful. And I think it is from growing up in such a different ecological environment. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But thus far, and I've only probably run in the hills like 6 times, so it is like this new thing for me. And I'm still getting to know how far I can run and still be back in time for school pickup, which one time I cut it close. I was 2 minutes late. When your kid's at a new school, 2 minutes late. Like I said, oh, sorry, I got caught, like mistimed things. But so I don't know. And there's not too many details about the running in the hills other than, one day I go right, one day I go left, one day I take this path, one day I take that one. Let's see where this goes. And then keep an eye on my time out and then trying to say, okay, can I get back in the same amount of time I went out on? But again, and I don't know if you ever experienced this, but where you're touching something in a sense and you're saying, why does this feel so electric? Why does this touch feel so electric to me? And I guess for somebody like me that's an overthinker, part of me would say you shouldn't be enjoying this so much or you're delusional or whatever. Like there is a part of me, a strong internal critic or cynic, but I still said, what is this with these hills? I mean, it really isn't that big a deal. It is, though. I don't know. And it's not a traditional beauty. Like a lot of people would say, well, these hills, they're just like barren, straw, grassy hills with some old gnarled trees. And I say, yeah, like a walnut tree I think I ran across the other day. And they're bleak, like it's just dirt, hard-packed dirt. And, it's just the sun's on it and gnarled. And I say, oh, boy, yes, you are right. Doesn't that make your heart palpitate so much? But I still said, what is it about these hills? And even talking to my journal about it, I said, well, like I've been running with these hills and it's just, I don't know, it's really got me going. And I can't quite put my finger on it. Not to be, like I'm thirsting these hills, like, and so, as I was writing it out, I remembered, that there is what is the electric layer was when I moved to California and I'd never been to California before. That was the first thing I saw that I knew I was in California. And I was actually incorrect in some sense. And so I was on the plane. I was taking a flight. I don't know where my layover was, but I flew into the San Jose, California airport, which over the past few years, it had kind of grown in traffic, but it's a small, at the time it was a smaller airport, but still still jets could land. And I was flying from Syracuse to California, but I had probably had one or two layovers, maybe just one. Maybe there's flights from JFK or LaGuardia, but who knows? All I know is like, I love looking out the window of a plane, but at some point, like I started to see these hills, and for someone from Syracuse, I thought they were sand dunes. And I said, "Holy mackerel!" Is I really felt like I was experiencing it. It just like my mind was blown, like seeing these sand dunes, or what I saw were these sand dunes, and just being like, "Holy mackerel! I cannot believe what I'm seeing. I can't believe these rolling hills." Like it was from someone that just grows up in a much different environment, which, now I go back there and I kind of have it really is powerful. Like I'm able to have that exact appreciation, like flying into an East Coast city in the summer and seeing the trees retaining the humidity, or flying in the starker time and seeing everything you can see because there's no leaves on the trees. I really haven't gotten a lot of autumn travel back east or flying someplace that's in another different environment, like maybe Florida, but like flying to the East Coast, the Northeast, or flying into a city like New York or Philly, and then seeing like the combination of the green and the heat on the cities. Oh boy. And then being on the ground and going for hikes or walks and those type of things, which is a mix of kind of, what do you call them? Evergreen and deciduous trees, and feeling that humidity, a whole nother romance. But so I remember my plane landed, and I can't, it's interesting, you have these powerful moments that are a little bit misty, right? Where a new part, you're taking a new part of your life. And maybe also this is coming up because my daughter's experiencing it in a different way. She's a freshman in high school, right? But so, I'm on this plane and I can just remember looking out the window and seeing these hills and thinking that this must have been like where they shot like movies that took place in deserts, which I can't even think of one. I think there was some like action type, drama type movie, but I don't even know. Like I said, these are like the sand dunes you see in movies like that people get to ski down and no, they were not. And then just like it was hot because this was August, and San Jose gets pretty hot. It can get pretty hot. Like I got off the plane, it was hot. And I mean, I did not know anything. I knew very little about California other than San Francisco and Los Angeles and a little bit more. That was the limits of my knowledge. And like I said, I'd never been there before. So I was thinking that San Jose, I was like, this must be one of these desert regions of California, which it was incorrect. And I guess part of my brain didn't quite put together that San Francisco was just like 30 miles away or something. And so I got off the plane. Like I said, it was hot. Now this is where my memory gets a little bit foggy. And it's weird that mostly other than these feelings of mesmerizing, I can't really tap into the other feelings because I'm sure I was feeling some other strong feelings because I was going there, and I'll talk a little bit more about it. But whatever, let me get this hill stuff out while we were here. So I get off the plane. And I presume it's daytime, so my best guess is that I left early in the morning on the East Coast, which would make sense because even now, when I visit Syracuse, there's not a lot of flight options. Like this past time, luckily there was like a 12 o'clock or an 11 o'clock midday flight, But usually normally there's only like very early, you're talking like 6 a.m. flights to connect to a flight to the West Coast, or late afternoon flights that then don't get in till really late, like 1 a.m. But somehow this year, because also I had to change my tickets a bunch of times, but I was able to get some flight that left at a reasonable time. Like I think it was like around 10:30 or 11. And then, whatever, went to one of the hubs, Detroit or Atlanta normally. And then I was able to get home at a reasonable time, like 7 or 8 o'clock at night. I think it was, like 6 or 7 o'clock. Okay, so I land in San Jose. I get off the plane. I think and probably somebody had coached me through this, but I'm pretty sure this was back in so I had a hotel booked near the airport. And I'm pretty sure this almost never happened to me ever again. But I'm pretty sure what happened was this was back when all the hotels had free shuttles. Any airport hotel also had a free shuttle that would pick you up at the airport because it wasn't close enough to the airport to walk. And I'm actually not, now I'm 99% positive because I can kind of remember walking up, and I think a lot of times they had a dedicated kind of phone booth for it where you just press one button and it calls a hotel and you say, hey, I'm here in the San Jose airport. I need you to pick me up. And this, I'm pretty sure it was a Holiday Inn, but just at least in my mind, that's what it was, like a Holiday Inn type motel. I don't think, well, maybe it was oh boy, we're getting more information coming here. I think so. So I get the hotel shuttle, and I'm pretty sure it was daytime because I don't think I stayed more than one night. I think I only stayed one night at this place. So I went to the hotel, and we'll just pretend it's a Holiday Inn, and I checked in, and again, I said, holy cow, let me get out, and I, went to my room, and I knew I had to be somewhere the next morning, I think, but so I got settled. I don't really remember, I literally remember nothing about the room at all. But I know it had an outdoor pool, and I went swimming because I love swimming, and it was so hot. So I don't know if I swam right away or I went swimming. And so this hotel was also the recommended hotel, I think, for the people that were doing this, which was like a year-long volunteer program. So I think part of me was the social nervous part of me. And loner, I have my loner part of me because I like to be alone sometimes, but there's also the forlorn loner, or the outsider type part of me. And so I don't know if there was other people my age at the pool, or if I was wondering or whatever. But so I know I went swimming. I'm not sure if I went swimming first or last. And the only other thing I knew I did, which is so me, for nowadays, but I guess I had gone to college in New York too, so it made sense, is I went for a walk. And if this, so this was not in downtown San Jose. So this was somewhere out, actually San Jose Airport, though, is somewhat near downtown San Jose. And I don't think maybe I asked at the front desk, where is there someplace I could go eat? Or maybe I didn't. I just started walking, but I walked and I got to a boulevard that you would expect by not far from a airport where hotels and motels are. Maybe it was the same boulevard the hotel was on. And it just had offices and fast food places. And this was either a Saturday or a Sunday. And so then I went to a Togo's. And the reason I'm laughing is that my relationship, it just I didn't know that it was a chain. And again, I had moved from a place that in this was Togo's, I think, was pre-Subway, or maybe Subway was around at this point. But if you were going to eat at a chain deli in New York City, you would usually eat at a Blimpie's. And if you were eating at a chain deli in Syracuse, you would usually eat at Drex Subs. And otherwise, you could go to the Brooklyn Pickle, or in New York City, you could take your pick of like independent delis. In all of those places, even Blimpies or Drex Subs, they make similar sub sandwiches. And I know some people have hoagies and grinders, and Adam Sandler has a song about it, but those are made a certain way. And so I had like a kind of East Coast sandwich sensibility, and I still do. I had a sub at an independent sub shop this summer, and it was an East Coast sub. I don't know how else to describe it. I mean, Subway attempted to copy that, but not successfully. No offense. But they did a good enough job. And Togo's is not like that. It's and I don't quite know how to put my finger on the difference, but that, so I remember ordering the sub and eating it and kind of being satiated and probably drinking some lemonade or soda. And I just remember that. Well, and the reason I was laughing again also is because, so for a long time, I worked somewhere in a building that was on like the second floor or even outside. Like in this building, it was a reconverted factory to like offices and stuff. And then on the ground floor was a Home Depot. I think there was a Walmart that had a Mickey D's in there. There was a cell phone store and maybe one or two other things. And then I think Togo's was like literally the only place. So if I forgot to bring my lunch to work and I didn't want to drive somewhere, which I didn't want to do ever, to go get my lunch, my option was Togo's or I think Mickey D's, which you just can't, I mean, come on. I mean, occasionally, like inside of Walmart. So I grew to have a contentious relationship with Togo's because it just was one of those places where it was like, did its job, but nothing ever, I never had like, oh boy, I got to go to Togo's and get that Wild Ones sandwich pack. It was more like, well, at least I could fill up on the Sun Chips and then whatever, I'll have the turkey or the tuna or whatever they got going. So I guess I'm not mean. That's just my personal taste either. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. If you love Togo's or if you work there, that's cool. I mean, probably people love it. And it was the first place I ever ate. There you go. First place I ever ate in California, Togo's. And while I was at Togo's, that's when I got a little bit closer view of these hills. And I was this part was a little bit like a boring Sleep With Me movie where I was like that kid, like walking down. I mean, this is why I say boring Sleep With Me, because I'm walking like through Office Park style area from a Holiday Inn, looking at these hills, realizing there's grass on the hills, but still like the undulation of these hills. It just struck me. It was just, it was romantic in a way, like I was talking about earlier, that I'm feeling about it now. That's not traditionally romantic. Like, sure, California. I mean, I got to move to LA, and now the hills around LA or the Los Angeles National Forest or the Angeles National Forest, there's some romance. And then you go further, into the mountains, the Sierras and stuff, like, holy mackerel. These hills are not like that flashy. Even if you go into some of the East Bay, the Redwood areas, like these hills are more undulating hills with straw-like grass. But there was just something about it. And maybe it's just seared to that new memory. And then I walked back to the Holiday Inn, and I'm pretty sure I didn't do anything. I don't know. Maybe maybe I did something. But at some point I met two other gentlemen or boys, I don't know, guys that were doing this volunteer program that knew each other. And I don't know if I met him at that night or during the day. And one of them was a little bit more outgoing. And he said, hey, are you in this JVC program? And I said, yeah. And then he said, oh, come back to our room. I'm pretty sure I came back to the room like the morning we were supposed to take the airport shuttle back to the airport. And that's where our journey started. But let me back up again. And I kind of talked about this a long time ago in another podcast. So, but again, hopefully maybe this is some new territory. And if you're listening, maybe you're sound asleep looking so good, and that's great. But if you are here along with me and you're here for me to keep you company, maybe it could help make some of this normal, because this is what old Scoots goes through all the time. But so this goes back to college, and I graduated college, or I was graduating, and I did not know what I needed to do, what I was going to do. I knew what I wanted to do with my life, which was to make movies. But that didn't seem possible. And at the time, I was probably, some of my underlying issues, I got sober much later after this, but I probably, that was impacting my decision-making, my relationship with alcohol, and my relationship with fear, which those two are inexorably linked. So I thought and this was, well, it's not mistaken because my life took the journey it took, but I think if I was in a more stable or confident or comfortable place, I probably would have stayed in New York, which is what most of my friends did. Oh, because I went to college in the Bronx and Fordham in New York City. And some of my friends got job offers when they were in college, or they were recruiting, or they were like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And they kind of started to kind of figure out who's going to live with who or whom. And I was I had the old, the hot foot, right? They call it, I think I thought I was going to get some geographic cure. I said, okay, well, but I also was just lost. I said, I don't know what I want to do. I know I don't have good boundaries. And if I just get some job, working in the office, I'll get stuck. At least I had that foresight, because you could easily get a job. There's just a lot of companies. I mean, I think they were all companies that were hiring people based on selling something or whatever. So it wouldn't have worked out anyway. But But I said, no, I can't just get a job, and I didn't have any money, so it's I kind of got to figure out a job to stay in New York, and I just had a sense of hot foot. I said, oh, no, I got to get out of here. I don't know what I'm going to do. And I guess when you talk about synchronicity with these hills, there's also other forms of synchronicity, because I'll never forget it. I don't know if this was what part of my senior year this was, but they had this volunteer career fair, or volunteer opportunity fair or something. And I think one or two people that I knew said, hey, I'm going to go check this out. And maybe I liked somebody and they were going or what, but I went to this, and I found two different organizations, well, three, but two that I was very strongly interested in. And I didn't even realize this was an option. It was oh, you could do a year's service after you graduate, and that's what you'll do for a year. And there was one, and it had just it was having trouble with funding because of politics type stuff. But it's still around now, which is AmeriCorps. And they had these two different kinds of AmeriCorps, they had this one AmeriCorps that was responding to stuff. And I said, wow, when major events happen, I don't know if this program's still in place, but AmeriCorps is a direct service thing. You go, Teach for America was another one that was there, but I didn't think I wanted to be a teacher. And I remember actually maybe one of the guys I went for, he did Teach for America. I think that's what it's called. And you volunteer and you teach for a year. And I think now he's a principal somewhere. But so, I said, oh, okay, well, I don't want to do Teach for America because I don't see, which is ironic. I don't see myself being a teacher. And so I saw this AmeriCorps thing. I said, okay, they said, yeah, we kind of have these two things going right now. Maybe they were called different things at the time, but we had like regular AmeriCorps, which you go do something and, whatever, like similar to Teach for America. You go work in direct service with people in need. And I said, okay, that sounds cool. And then they said, we have this other one, but it doesn't have funding right now. If funding got cut, we're trying to get it back restored. And it's more physical, like that. And probably now they have like something like the Civilian Conservation Corps. It was similar to that, where it wasn't necessarily all like fixing trails and anything. It was like, oh, if some strong weather goes somewhere, these volunteers would go there and help. And I said, that'd be cool. So they said, well, okay, well, here's how you apply to all of it. So I saw that one. Then I saw another one. What did I say? There was three. There might have been one other like organization I can't think of. But so there was this other organization there called JVC, which stands for Jesuit Volunteer Corps. And JVC was based in a Jesuit tradition, and it was a little bit more mission based. Where AmeriCorps was like non-secular. JVC is not necessarily Catholic. I mean, even though it has a Jesuit backing, it was rooted in this fourfold mission, which was spirituality, like which you could define how you wanted, social justice, simplicity, and community. And it had this fourfold of values. And it said, okay, and yeah, again, you go work in direct service. A lot of the direct service was either, not social work because you weren't a social worker, but working with social workers or teaching. And they said it's a little bit harder to get into, we like screen people or whatever. And, but they said, here's how to apply. And I said, holy cow, like this might be for me, like one of these two things. And the more I kind of discerned about it, ironically, when you talk about Jesuits and stuff, like, I said, I really think, I want to do one of these. And at the time, the response, AmeriCorps was like my top choice. And so whatever, I filled out the applications, and my timeline is very confusing because I have no idea, like if this happened after I graduated college, or I think the JVC probably timeline was probably, like you apply for it and then, get accepted till after you graduate college. I'm not sure about that though. Because there was some uncertainty, and the AmeriCorps one was definitely uncertain. Like they were like, you can apply, but at the time, even the AmeriCorps overall, they were like, we might lose funding just because there was different parties in charge of each part of the government, and they weren't getting along. So they were like, we might not have any funding for this at all, but we definitely are having trouble getting the funding for this. This is just how I remember it too. Might not be true. And so I said, okay, that I guess will be my first choice, but I'll apply to this JVC too because it sounds pretty cool and sounds maybe a little bit too intense for me, like the idea of the spirituality. But I said, it appeals to me, like the idea of social justice, because I'd moved from someone that was more ignorant, right? And more close-minded, and I didn't really understand how the world was for everybody. And as I became more aware of that, I did say, wait a second, there is this social injustice that I see, now that I've gotten outside of my bubble. And it did become more and more important to me the more time I spent. I think that's part of like a Jesuit education or even a liberal arts education sometimes. You say, oh, okay, whoa, like I really was an ignorant, privileged person and still am. But as I started to realize more of that, I said, wait a second, like maybe I do need to be a part of change here. Or I'm not comfortable with this. What can I do about it? And so JVC did offer an opportunity to engage with that and say, well, if this is important to you, simplicity, social justice, spirituality, and community, think about applying. And so then I applied for JVC. And the only things I really remember about it is, I don't know if it's after you get in or when you apply. I think when you apply, back then when I applied, you applied to a region. So there was like the United States was broken up into like 1, 2, 3, 4, like 5 or 6 regions, like the Northeast, the Southeast, the South, middle South, like maybe the South, but that included like Texas and everything. So, and then the Midwest, the Northwest, and the Southwest. So I applied to JVC SW Southwest. And because I said, well, if I could, like, if I'm going to do this, like, why not do it somewhere that's like I could live in California or Arizona? And I think at the time I had like this, also this romantic view of not just California, but of Arizona as well. I think at the time I was like, would have been happy to be in California or Arizona. And then you had to apply, then you had to pick, I think they gave you a list of locations and jobs, and you had to like rank your top 10 or your top 5. And then you had to, apply for the jobs, like based on your experience. And a lot of the jobs were teaching, which was a bit of a bummer for me because I was kind of like, I just didn't see myself as a teacher. But I think I did like put some Arizona teaching jobs high. And then Los Angeles was like my second choice. And then after that, maybe San Diego. I wasn't like, I didn't have as much, like I had more glamour for Los Angeles than San Francisco at the time. Even though like as a kid, I talked about how I was obsessed with San Francisco when I was in grammar school. And so I applied, and then I remember having an interview call with this guy, Mike, and he was very animated and sounded pretty relaxed. And he said, okay, well, like, tell me about yourself. It was more of like an informational, whatever you call it, interview to kind of see how you'd handle things socially and things well outside of your comfort zone. And then I found out I got in, and then I found out I got placed in East Los Angeles at Our Lady of Guadalupe School. And that is where I would be a second grade teacher's aide and a boys PE teacher and coach, none of which I was qualified. Second grade teacher's aide, I was pretty qualified to do. And also I was in the capable hands of Mrs. T. So she was Florencia. She was the best. And I got, so back up as we close out here. So I was at the thing. I saw the beautiful hills, went to Togo's, met these 2 guys. I was definitely outside. Then I started getting outside my comfort zone. Then we had to go get a bus, and I think it was a school bus, and we were going to go on like a training retreat. And I remember our bus broke down going over the Santa Cruz Mountains. And I can't remember who I sat with. I think I can kind of barely remember, like sitting with a couple people. And I was very, very socially feeling those strong feelings. And eventually we got to the retreat center. And then it was in Aptos, California, like on the coast. And now the Northern California coast is much different than the Southern California coast. So I don't know if we swam, but I remember hanging out on the beach. And there was people that were like a little bit more like socially interactive than me. And then I met my future roommates, because you live in community. You live in the community you serve and then in a community of other volunteers. And I met all my roommates and I said, okay, well, this seems like we all seemed to get along. And there was 3 women and 1 other male, and we kind of connected. And then I said, okay, well, at least now I know some people. And I'm trying to think how else everything planned out. Then we had the kind of retreat and training, and we kind of got to know our community members, and then kind of got more comfortable and kind of got trained in mostly like, how do you deal with as a graduate of school, like going to a new job that's going to be pretty intense. And that was the most important, powerful thing was like, just remember this is going to be really hard. And your first few weeks are going to be really, really hard living in community. Also, we were supposed to be living simply, which meant we had a very limited budget. Like our housing was paid for and our utilities, and then we got a small stipend to spend and then a small stipend for food and stuff. And they said, you just kind of let yourself, you're not going to be good at your job, and it's, you're going to have to learn, like you'll slowly learn. So give yourself permission to have some really hard days at work. Sorry, I get distracted. And then, so we had a simple budget. So believe it or not, like we were actually able to eat really well. I think we were each given $75 a month for food, and we kind of pooled that among the five of us and took turns cooking. I did get lunch at my job though, because we all the teachers, that was a great thing. Just happened to be with my job, but we would the mother of the parish priest would cook lunch for the teachers every day. So we'd have like a teachers meeting every day and eat lunch, which was absolutely amazing. So trying to think if there's anything else. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's just been on my mind, I guess, with changes lately, but just the hills and how it's kind of reconnected me. And it's just strange to kind of fall in love with something again that not many people probably fall in love with. And then why do I love this so much? And I say, oh, well, I love it because of what it is, but also because I was already connected to it. So if you're wondering where I am, I'm probably not, but at some point you could see me slowly, oh, so slowly jogging on that path, listening to a podcast and really like enjoying the dirt and the heat and the dust kicking up. Not too dusty though. And the grass and the views of those rolling straw-colored hills. So glad to be back in your arms. Good night. All right, everybody. I want to thank everybody that signed up for our referral program in the last couple months. You could do that at sleepwithmepodcast.com/refers. And to some of the people that are really bringing in the referrals, I want to thank the people that just signed up. Faith, Tanya, and Morgan. Thanks you. Thanks and good night. Tyra, Lorinda, and Rowan. Thank you. Thanks and good night. Melena, Anna, and Tom. Thank you. Thanks and good night. Rebecca, Allie, and Sherry. Thank you. Thanks and good night. Maggie, Stacy, and Ashley, thank you. Thanks, and good night. Tiffany, Holly, and Lauren, thank you. Thanks, and good night. Will, Maids, and Kim, thank you. Thanks, and good night. Charlotte, Alicia, and Jack, thanks, and good night. Cy, Charlie, and Maria, thank you. Thanks, and good night. And Kimberly, Anita, and Alana, thank you. Thanks, and good night. Julie, Leslie, and Stephanie, thank you. Thanks, and good night. Jay, Jill, and Ziggy, thank you. Thanks, and good night. Keith, Aaron, and Sebastian, thank you. Thanks, and good night. Rachel, Annalise, and Amy, thank you. Thanks, and good night. Haley, Vanessa, and Maganda, thank you. Thanks, and good night. Bastian, Katie, and Mika, thank you. Thanks, and good night. And I want to thank everybody that got some referrals in the past couple of months. Mika, Haley, Keith, Ziggy, holy moly. Ziggy's shared the podcast 37 times, got 15 referrals. Let's see who else here has been bringing them in. Maids has got a referral. Maggie, 46 shares, 7 referrals. Rowan, 5 shares, 2 referrals. Some people, you got to share it. Like I said, Maggie 46 times, Ziggy 37 times, Keith 14. Let's dig a little bit deeper here. What else we got? Marigold, who signed up a while ago, 22 shares and bringing in some referrals. Katie, 24 shares and bringing in some referrals. Eden's got a referral. Debbie's got 3 referrals from 10 shares. Lorette's got 15 shares and 4 referrals. Caroline's got a referral. Lisa's got a referral. Anna's got a referral. Alice, 39 shares and getting some referrals. Tanya, 38 shares and 9 referrals. Wow. And just to show how high, those are the people that are newer. Our leaderboard here, let me just see the number. Cornelia has 3,390 shares and 428 referrals, which is just absolutely amazing. So thank you, everybody, and thanks, and good night.